free concert. So if you want to be part of this historical global concert, that's Monday night, 7:30 at Emmanuel. So moving right along, we're going to bring on our first guest, one of the candidates for Queens Borough President, and one of them in the unique position amongst all the candidates that was very close to this position was the Deputy Queens Borough President, and we want to welcome Mr. Barry Grodenchik. Barry, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, my friend? Good
Doing
to talk
very,
to you.
very good. Thanks for calling. We really appreciate it. And so that's you were the Deputy Borough President under Helen Marshall.
That's correct.
And she's a lovely woman. We wish her well in her retirement. And so I guess one of the questions for you is having been so close to her, and if you were to win, what differences would we see in you as Queen Borough President than we've seen from Ms. Marshall?
Well, Ed, I think everybody has their own style, and I think what I bring to my candidacy is a lot of drive, a lot of passion. I'm a lifelong Queens resident. I think most of the people in this race are, and I'm very excited. I been traveling the length and breadth of Queens from Fort Totten to Fort Tilden, and that pretty much covers most of it. Been spending a lot of time in the Rockaways and Broad Channel and Howard Beach and Hamilton Beaches, the areas most affected by Sandy in the last 6 months. And I've always been a very hands-on kind of person. I like to go out and see. When I was sworn into the assembly, a group of ladies came up to me and they asked me to help fix a sidewalk that was so old it was still blue slate. Wow. And I worked, got the DOT. It was an unusual situation. Most sidewalks underneath Long Island Railroad overpasses in Queens are owned by the Long Island Railroad. In this case, it was City DOT, a little easy to deal with, and we got it replaced in short order. But what I told them was I have to go out and see it. I need visuals. Recently, I met with the Bell Harbor Properties Association one Saturday morning. I guess it's a couple of months ago. I said, I need to see what you're talking about. So I tend to be very, very hands-on. I like to see it, and it gives me a much better idea of what we're dealing with and what needs to be done.
Very good.
Sometimes, even from pictures or video, it's sometimes very hard to visual. I hadn't been there more than a minute when I realized what they needed, but we spent an hour talking, and it was really nice to spend time with those people. Sure,
you really get a sense going down there that for people who haven't visited and been down to that area, the massive devastation that people experience down there. Do you have some idea?
Unreal, absolutely unreal. I was down there we were down there the morning after with the Borough President, and we hooked up with John Gaska, who was the district manager, Community Board 14, and he had a four-wheel drive truck, and we needed that. There was so much sand in the streets, and in places it was 2 or 3 feet deep. And, of course, we got down the Shorefront Parkway, and there's the Department of Sanitation already clearing the streets. Obviously, a lot of work needed to be done. There is a sea change difference in how it looks since Sandy hit, but there's still a lot of people that are hurting, a lot of people that are not in their houses, still a lot of people without electricity because they can't get hooked back up. So what I've been talking about, and I was down at the Good Government Democratic Club last night, and what I've been saying, and I say this all over Queens, is we need a Sandy task force to work with the next administration, both the Borough President's office and also the mayor's office and the other elected officials and the other appointed officials to ensure that the people down in southern Queens that have been affected so badly by this storm are not forgotten.
Excellent. Yeah, they really they certainly need a lot of attention. Moving on to a different area here. Queens has a lot of some really remarkable and noteworthy and historic locations, but a lot of people feel that landmarking, Queens has been kind of shortchanged when it comes to landmarks. Do you agree with that it's been shortchanged? And are there some areas in Queens that some items that you'd like to see get landmark status?
Well, you asked me a good question because I have served on the board of two historic houses in Queens, one being the oldest house in Queens, the Bound House. I served there as both as a board member and vice president of the board, and work has begun there on restoration of the exterior of the house. It's long overdue, and as you know, these processes, working with city contracting and with several different agencies involved, can be very, very complex. And when you're working with a house that's over 350 years old, you really have some problems. I was also on the board of the Latimer House, both of those houses in Flushing. Where it's appropriate, absolutely, we need to do more landmarking. We need to preserve our heritage. Queens has a great heritage as being a home of tolerance and political and religious freedom. And we need to let people know that. We need to showcase it not just to the residents of Queens, but really to the entire metropolitan area. And, many of our presidents, the President of the United States, talk about us being the last best hope of mankind. And I like to think it started right here in Queens, so we need to preserve that.
Excellent. Very good. Now speaking of preserving, there's been it's been a hot topic in all of Queens, and is what's going to happen over at Flushing Meadows with the development plans. What's your position on that?
Well, I would have supported had I been an elected official. I've been working I'm also the Parks Liaison as well as being Director of Community Boards. So I worked very closely on the process with the U.S. Tennis Association and their proposed expansion. My viewpoint on that was very similar to what the Borough President had. We needed to make sure that we replaced the parkland. We need to make sure that we establish a larger trust fund. The first development of the USTA, the big expansion in the early 90s, that created an $8 million trust fund. But unfortunately, the interest rates are so low now that trust fund is barely spinning off any money. I guess nobody envisioned at that time. Certainly, I was involved in those discussions as well when I worked for Claire Shulman, and I don't think anybody envisioned practically a zero interest rate. So we need a trust fund, and we also need to make sure that there's a project labor agreement in place so that the building trades that are working on this, it's $500 million worth of construction, are taken care of as well. With regard to the Major League Soccer proposal, I have to tell you, and I've said this in many forums publicly, the plan that was put forth at the Queens Borough Board in December was just about one of the worst plans I've ever heard. Just to give you a for instance, Ed, toward the end of the evening, I asked the gentleman, I said, how high is this thing going to be? How high is it going to be? And they didn't have a height of the stadium. They gave me an approximation. The guy said it'll be about as high as the Unisphere. Well, that's pretty high. Right. If you stand next to the Unisphere, you feel pretty small. This is right in the heart of the park. Granted, they're proposing to build most of it on a piece of the park that really is not very attractive. It's the Fountain of the Planets, which would cost I've never gotten an estimate for what it would cost to fix that up, but I would have to think it would be tens and tens of millions of dollars and maybe even $100 million. But the plan as it stands right now is a non-starter. And, introducing, they're proposing some potentate from the Middle East. This is really, I don't think it's going to fly very well in Queens County.
No. Okay. Shifting gears a little bit, part of the job, Queens Borough President is being an ambassador of Queens to the world. So I'm picturing this scenario where you're someplace maybe in France and you're at a little sidewalk cafe and you overhear young
I don't
couple
speak French, but okay, keep going.
Yeah, but these two just happen to speak English, and they're talking away, and it's a young couple and they're talking about visiting different parts of the United States, but they're really not sure, and they mention Queens, but they're not sure about it. They're kind of on the fence. What would you tell them? How would you seal a deal to convince them to
Well, we certainly have a lot of exciting restaurants in Queens. I mean, if you eat in Manhattan, you're probably paying double or triple what you might pay in a great Queens restaurant. We have world-class baseball. My Mets, unfortunately, not doing as well as I'd hoped this year, but we have the USTA. We have the Rockaway Beaches, which are going to be rebuilt. People, I had a friend come in years ago from California, and I said, let me take you down there. And they couldn't believe that we could have nice beaches on Long Island, and they were astonished at what they saw. So we have world-class beaches. We have world-class eateries. We have interesting historic places. The Unisphere is certainly worth a trip from anywhere. It's monumental, and I think people get a great thrill out of that. And just seeing the diversity in Queens, it's tremendous. Granted, we have a lot of bedroom communities, and we realize that people come here to see Manhattan, and that's fine. But most of the people that come to New York City land at JFK. We like to keep them here a little longer to enjoy the great things that we have to offer. Very good, very good. Yeah, I would definitely not mention the Mets in that. Well, I have to. I'm a partisan. Yeah, no, I listen. So am I. It's easy to root for the Yankees. My father and mother both grew up in the Bronx, and I like to say, because my mother said this. Both my parents are gone now, but my mother, a girl from the Bronx, I don't know if she'd ever been to Queens before she moved here. That's how far away it was for them. And she said to me, I felt like I was moving to another country. So I like to say I'm the son of immigrants, because well, I was actually born in the Bronx because that's where the doctor was. But Queens has been great to my family. We love it here, and I can't think of any other place I would want to live. That's great. Hey, so I got two more questions for you. One, in a race like this, you get asked a lot of questions. You go to a lot of different forums and stuff. You can't believe the questions that come up. It just absolutely, just because of the diversity of Queens. Sure. At the first forum, a gentleman asked a question about halal food in prison. So you just don't know. You never know what's going to come up. And you try to be prepared. I like to think that I'm prepared for most things, but, when I don't know something, I'm not going to lie to you. I'll tell you I have to look into it. I don't know enough about it to give you a reasonable answer. I have the most borough-wide experience of anybody in this race, having served for almost a decade and a half in the Borough President's office under 2 Borough Presidents. So there's no neighborhood that is surprising to me. There's no neighborhood that's going to be shocking to me. And I think at most of the time, the concerns of people in Woodhaven are the same concerns of people that live anywhere else in Queens. Sure. They want safe streets. They want good schools for their children. They want good parks and good libraries. Certainly in those last 2 issues, the Borough President's office has been a tremendous steward of our libraries. There's no better library system in the nation. We're very proud of that. And our parks really, we have invested about $170 million just in Borough President money over the last 11 years. So we're very excited about that. Very good, very good. Well, last question here, and that is about Italian ice. I'm a big fan of Italian ices. Where do you get your Italian ices, and what is your favorite? Well, if you live in Queens, you have to go to the Lemon Ice King, and I've been going there since I was a little boy. We had the next door neighbor of ours was Francis X. O'Brien, and he had this really great sky blue Impala. It would be a classic now. It was like a 64 or 65. And every now and then, we had no air conditioning. I grew up in Palmanac, public housing right by Queens College, and we had no air conditioning, and we had no cable TV. And I think those 2 things have helped really bring down community life in New York City, because people don't sit outside in the summer anymore. They're inside watching TV, or they're and staying cool. But every now and then, Mr. O'Brien would say, "Let's go to the Lemon Ice King." And, my father would pile in the front with Francis, and, there'd be about 8 kids in the back. Today you'd get pulled over by a cop. Back then it was just, SOP. So it's definitely the Lemon Ice King. But I'm not that provincial that I, don't understand that everybody has their favorites. And, I heard you mention Joe Abbracciamento's. That's a great restaurant on Woodhaven Boulevard. Not in Woodhaven, but, we have great places to eat and to drink and to do all kinds of wonderful things all over Queens County. And we really are a county of neighborhoods. And it's a very exciting thought to be running for the Borough Presidency. And I am giving it my hardest. I'm giving it a full shot. And I've got most of the people all the people in the race I've known for a long time. And we got a good slate of candidates. I like to think, though, that my experience gives me an edge above. All right. Well, listen, thank you for calling in. Good luck in the race. And we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us tonight. Ed, thank you. And thank you to the people of Woodhaven for listening. And we'll see you on the campaign trail. All right. Be well, bro. Take care. Good night. Thanks. Good night. That's Mr. Barry Grodenchik, candidate of the
candidate for Queens Borough President, and appreciate him calling in tonight. And like we said, we had